The last season of anime was incredible. There was just banger after banger, and everyone just kind of agreed that these shows were good. Unlike this season, where every show seems to spark a new debate about something. And while I don't think all the criticism is wrong, I've seen a lot of takes that I just don't agree with. A lot of you probably won't agree with some of my takes either, so here we go. Everyone has been up in arms about One Punch Man Season 3, and I mean, yeah man, look at how bad it looks. I mean, just look at how off-model Genos is in this scene. Oh wait, that's Season 1. Huh. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like One Punch Man Season 3's production quality is particularly good. It's not. One Punch Man's story is genuinely incredible and deserves better than this. But on the other hand, it's not nearly as bad as some people are making it out to be, and has also exposed just how spoiled people have become when it comes to animation. Over the last 5 years or so, the production value for anime has just gone up so much. I mean, it's gotten so crazy that even the One Piece anime, the anime best known for terrorizing the eyes of all ages due to how bad the art and animation quality is, has gotten countless episodes that are above movie level quality. Like, remember when the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen came out? Everyone lost their minds about how well animated it was. That was the thing it was known for. But after season 2 came out and was one of the best produced seasons of anime ever, people started looking back at season 1 like, man, that shit wasn't even that crazy for real. Like, look at this ugly ass color grading and this whack ass compositing.
Oh my god! What is that?
Or with the Chainsaw Man anime, it looks incredible. This animation is genuinely nuts, but still, not only did people complain about the CGI, they called it a bad adaptation because the art style and color direction wasn't accurate to the manga.
All y'all do is complain first and foremost. Please get a new hobby.
Like, I get the art style not being to your liking if you're a manga reader, but bad? If this is bad, then I guess One Punch Man Season 3 never stood a fucking chance to begin with. Personally, I don't put that much value on animation quality. Don't get me wrong, good animation is always appreciated, but that doesn't mean average animation makes me unable to enjoy a show. I grew up on anime that would air every week for years, like Naruto, and despite the animation not being that good a lot of the time, that never stopped me from enjoying the story. Like, just look at Invincible. That shit looks garbage, but everyone loves Invincible. To be clear though, bad animation can ruin a story, but only if it's bad enough. For me, the range of animation quality that I think falls under the category of being good enough is really wide. Up at the top we have stuff like One Punch Man Season 1 or Chainsaw Man. In the middle and further down we have stuff like the first season of Tower of God or Blue Exorcist, and One Punch Man Season 3 is somewhere on the border between good enough and bad. So if you're a younger anime fan or someone who got into it recently, you're probably used to a very high level of animation, and so if you don't think this is good enough, I get that. It all comes down to whether or not you think this is good enough, and if you don't think so, I honestly don't blame you. But people have really been taking it way too far. It might not be good, but like, come on. Like, people have been calling it the worst anime of all time or similar, and it's just like, bro, deadass. It's just so clear that these people are either rage baiting or they just haven't watched that many anime. Like, you really think this shit looks better than One Punch Man? I get it's extra frustrating when the animation used to be so good, but even if we compare an example like that with Seven Deadly Sins, that shit looks so bad it makes One Punch Man seem as though it belongs in a museum. If you're calling it the worst anime ever, you clearly haven't experienced true pain.
Wait.
And honestly, I think we should cut it some slack. I mean, the whole thing is animated by one person after all. But I get it, rage baiting is very profitable. Despite being told over and over about 1,000,000 times that this is Bandai and the higher-ups' fault, and that the animators have been given these awful crunch sweatshop-like conditions by them with terribly short deadlines, they still go out of their way to blame the animators so that everyone gets mad at them and they get more engagement. The animators probably barely have time to eat lunch or see their families. Of course they don't don't have time to produce 200 high quality action drawings with fluid movement in a few hours. But no, of course, it's still their fault. They should have just stopped time to finish all the drawings. I guess when you're not talented at anything or don't have anything insightful to say, rage baiting's the only thing that works to get you attention. But what's kinda sad is that all this debate and fighting about the production quality has basically made it so that no one talks about the actual story itself, which is a shame because One Punch Man's story is so good and season 3 is no different. Garo continues to be a phenomenal character that you just can't help but root for. But I get it, no one cares about the story, people just want to whine about the animation, so let's talk about something that has some incredibly solid animation. A lot of people have been calling stuff like this and Kaiju number 8 mid shonen slop, and I don't really think that's true. I think Gachiakuta is actually pretty good, but that's just the thing. It's just good. This is one of those battle shonen that is always pretty solid and doesn't have any bad parts, but is never really great. I honestly like all the characters, but there's not any of them that I love. I think the power system is really good. The way your power is tied to a specific object is a really creative way to tie the characters' backstories and personal struggles into the action. Like Sanka, I thought his struggle in trying to find success as a mediocrity was super interesting, and the way his staff was such an integral and symbolic part of that journey made it all the more interesting to watch him fight with it and try to prove his worth. But there's not really any of the fights that I thought was incredible as a whole, and honestly I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that I don't really think the pacing is that great. It feels like it has one pace that it's always on. Even when it seems like it might start to ramp up, it immediately stops itself by going into some needless explanation or random dialogue that really isn't that insightful or important. Like at the start of their encounter with Amo. It's like so painfully obvious how her ability works, but they just keep standing around trying to figure out the exact specific details and intricacies of exactly how it works. It takes so long that eventually she just explains how her ability works herself. It takes them 14 minutes of talking before they feel like they're ready to fight her, and by then everyone has already been taken over by her ability. Like all you had to do was curb stomp this little girl and it would have been over. I'll find myself being really invested in the scene, but the scene just never ends, and it just kills its own momentum. I just wish it had some variety in the pacing. That being said though, I think the pacing of the story overall is very solid. Everything the characters do and every place we go to is always to get closer to achieving Rudo's goal of getting back to the sphere. We never have to do any dumbass side quests or anything like that, which makes me naturally very interested in wherever the story goes next. Except for the graffiti town, which had me sleep. I think maybe the coolest part is when Sodil reveals his big plan and gives us the information about the Watchmen series. It's such a crazy plan which also ties into the world building from earlier episodes, and there's this huge epic music blasting in the background as he reveals it. Even though the plan accomplished literally nothing, it was actually just kind of embarrassing. What did you even gain from this whole thing? The only thing you did was aura farm the whole time. Now the thing I appreciate most about this show is how creative and original it is. Don't get me wrong, it's still a battle shonen that follows the same formulas and tropes as its predecessors, but it does so with a lot more creativity. Like just look at the character designs. Instead of everyone just being dressed in these basic ass uniforms, they all look like they're Rick Owens models or something. And instead of there just being like humans that has to fight monsters, Gachiakuta's world is so much more complex and morally gray. Nobody really knows who the real bad guys are, instead we're just kind of navigating the world and dealing with threats we find along the way. And doing so is actually a very enjoyable experience, not just because the world building is incredible and is always relevant to the story, but because the main cast is just so likable. Like watching these guys drive around and visit new places is just so wholesome. They have such an organic dynamic. You can kind of tell how most of them feel about each other, like how Sanka is such a hard ass but really admires Engine and always goes out of his way to impress him, or how Rudo feels like everyone's little brother. I'm very impressed with how much of a defined group dynamic the author was able to establish in such a short amount of time. And I gotta say that this is a very well produced series. The art and animation is always on a consistently high quality, and the fact that people complain about it is actually insane. I was kind of worried in the first few episodes, given that the whole story is about trash and that there's just kind of trash everywhere, and some of the trash beasts were CGI, but the CGI basically just disappears immediately, and I'm really pleased with the art direction they chose. Even going through an area filled with trash has some amazing color direction. This is what happens when you actually give the animators time to work on the project. Despite it not being the best shit I've ever seen in my life, I can easily recommend Gachiakuta. It's some good stuff. So everyone was talking about this insane new episode from Star Wars Visions' third collection of random short story episodes, and honestly I had no idea this was even coming out. But when I saw that clip, I was like, what the fuck, y'all? God damn! Now, as much as I am a huge fan of Star Wars, I do not think Visions is particularly good.
I mean, it's alright, like...
The only episode I really enjoyed from the first season was the first one because I felt like it was pretty good at visual storytelling, but nothing in season 2 hit for me. And I think the problem ultimately comes down to short stories. The thing about short stories is that they're, you know, short, and so you really have to utilize the little time you have, but most of these stories I don't think are particularly good at that. Let's take the Old Republic cinematics for example. These aren't the best short stories in the world or anything, but I do think they make for some pretty good ones because they really know how to make the most out of the few minutes they have. The one with the brothers is only 4 minutes long, but we still get to see their whole life as they grow up and ultimately how they grow apart, all without dialogue. You can see exactly how and why the one brother got corrupted the way he did. And because it's able to communicate all of this so effectively and efficiently, I actually care about the story and characters, which is what all these cinematics are so good at. Like in the first cinematic, when the Master stayed behind to fight the Sith and ultimately died, I cared because I could tell the type of student-master relationship the two had, how much time they had spent together, and how deep their bond must have been. The Padawan is always behind the Master, following him, but when she seems troubled, he comforts her. As soon as the fight begins, the two of them move in sync. They save each other in the middle of the battle and are perfectly coordinated, like they've done this 100 times before. This is them at the height of their relationship, and that's why I actually felt something when I saw her reaction to his death. But so many of these episodes just aren't effective with their time. I do think the first episode is once again pretty solid. It's got this cool alliance, Home Alone style traps, Ewoks with scuba gear. I can't really hate this one. The last episode is also pretty cool as it's just a constant visual spectacle with some kick-ass jazz music. But all the other ones are pretty mid. They're so bad at being effective with their time that a lot of them feel like the first episode of a 50 episode anime instead of an actual full story. Like the 9th Jedi. After 40 minutes of this story, I still can't really tell you anything about the relationship between the girl and her dad, or any of the other characters for that matter. And the episode from season 1 aired so long ago that I'm not invested in any of these characters at all. Like man, I can't wait until 2035 when we maybe have 5 episodes of this anime. I do really like the idea of Star Wars making anime with Japanese studios, but these just aren't very good. So let's instead look at some good short stories. So Fujimoto's collection of short stories have been adapted and they are pretty good. These really do not waste time and just get straight to the point. Everything that happens is always to either progress the characters or build up the ultimate message of the respective story. And I think in a weird way, the fact that all of these stories came from the same author made it a more enjoyable experience than Visions. Instead of watching a bunch of random episodes with no correlation to each other aside from Star Wars Japan, it was like there was a common thread tying them all together. I think the first 4 and the last one were probably my favorites. The first one had some insane production value and a really poignant story that I just had no idea where was going at any point. The second one I think delivers its message in a very clear and concise way. It definitely reminded me of Kaiju number 8 in the way that as long as you try and don't give up, there will always be a chance, no matter how small. The third one was fucking hilarious, bro. That shit had me dying. Genuinely some high tier comedy in this one. I really thought the main character was just perfect. I kind of wish he had his own show, I'm not gonna lie. The fourth one was also pretty solid. It has a lot of cool ideas mixed together in a way that complements each other. And the last one is just really, really wholesome. I wasn't crazy on the rest of them, but none of them were really bad or anything. So overall, there was a lot of fun to be had here. It was some good shit. My Hero Academia is back for its final season, and I know some people think I hate My Hero, but that's not true. I love this show. I just have a lot of problems with how the story has developed in its second half. In particular, I thought the last season was its worst one by far. However, I will say that this season is really good. But this didn't really come as a shock for me. I kind of figured the story would start getting good again because, well, we're finally focusing on the actual story. No more pointless side characters or underbaked shallow side plots with zero build-up that has zero impact on the story, no disappointing reveals that leads to nothing. We can just focus on the main characters, Deku, Bakugo, All Might, Shigaraki, and All for One. Now, My Hero always did focus somewhat heavily on its side characters, like already in season 1, and I was fine with it then, but as the season went on, they introduced more characters, and even more, to the point where it's like, alright man, do you really expect me to care about this guy? Or him? Who? Not only is this too many characters for me to be invested in such a short amount of time, but it's also so many characters that the author can't substantially develop all of them. A lot of the actual UA class members introduced in season 1 wasn't even able to get any meaningful character development aside from really superficial stuff, so what was the point in them existing in the first place? Like, I swear this dude has more screen time in the final 2 seasons of My Hero than Zero, Sato, and Mineta, yet I can't tell you a single fucking thing about him. And so while I didn't particularly enjoy the journey up to this point, I do think the actual finale slaps pretty hard, as we get to focus on the actually interesting characters like Bakugo. Bakugo continues to be one of the very few characters, or maybe the only character, that has had his character 100% realized without any hiccups. And I'm so glad Horikoshi just stuck with his vision of the character and didn't change him due to people disliking him or whatever. He's one of those characters that you're supposed to either dislike or at least feel indifferent towards at the beginning, but as the story progresses, you start to learn why he is the way he is, and you see how he develops, and before you know it, you're like, hold up, Bakugo is kind of like a chill dude. It's kind of reminiscent of how it felt to see Ahsoka's development in Clone Wars. I won't spoil too much of what happens, but Bakugo really does get his moments, and I also think giving All for One like an actual backstory after all this time made him a much more interesting antagonist compared to the very contrived and dry toast he had before. And they really did go all out with the animation. The whole thing looks top tier throughout. I particularly like the parts where they use a bunch of smears, which we've seen before in My Hero. It just looks so good, man. Same with the music. I must say, as Yuki Hayashi's 1063rd fan, he really went all out with the score for this one. I feel like as the seasons went on, the tracks just kind of started getting more and more repetitive or just uninspired. But like, man, he really didn't hold back this time. If you've been a huge fan of My Hero up to this point, you will no doubt love this finale, and even if you've been critical like me, I still think there's a lot to like here despite its obvious flaws. Although I do think there is one ginormous flaw that is just too big to ignore. Deku's haircuts.
Top of his head.
Like I said, while there is a lot of solid anime this season, there is truly nothing that tops the last one. I would even go as far as to say it is one of the best seasons of anime ever, so check out this video to find out why.